I would say probably the best time to start a business is when you want to start the business. And like, you know, you can look at the external environment and you can kind of fool yourself into thinking that it's too bad or too good or it's not right maybe for you at this time. But really, if you have, you know, a mind to set up a business, there's not a whole lot you can do about the world economic crisis as a you know, an ordinary individual. And therefore, I would tend to say, you know, that it's relevant, but like it shouldn't stop you from setting up your business. Now, it might make things a little tougher with respect to raising funds and that, or with respect to, you know, maybe getting your market or your product to market in the time that you want. But by and large, like it doesn't, you know, it shouldn't really stop you from setting up your business. I know when I set it up Realex first, it was back in 10 years ago. So back in 2000, and the day that I left my job, NASDAQ was 5,200, and 9 months later it was 1,200. So, so first-hand experience of setting up a business in, you know, at a time like that. And everybody always says, you know, these are very challenging times, and these times are very different, you know. But that's the same every year. I mean, every year everybody comes out and says, you know, oh, things are very different now, but that's true all the time, really. So I wouldn't be too concerned about setting up a business, you know, during a recession at all. I guess it was 14 years. I'd worked for 14 years in the financial services sector for a bank. And it was a great 14 years. But I think what had happened was towards the end, I was maybe doing the same job year in, year out, rather than getting a chance to do something new maybe. And I had, you know, touched off internet technologies and touched off, kind of looked at some of the internet applications that were maybe possible and some of the issues that businesses were faced with when they looked at the internet. And it was just that dream of getting involved in something to do with the internet that would have interested me. I guess it's probably also relevant to say that it wasn't the first idea that I had either. I think it was the third idea that I had. So sometimes as well that you find that your first or second idea, you know, doesn't quite come to fruition and it doesn't actually, you know, materialize into something that can become real. But I was very, very keen, you know, right from many, many years ago to be my own boss, to have my own business, and to be, like I use the expression, to have the freedom to make my own mistakes and to chart my own course in terms of like how I wanted to grow an organisation and how I wanted to try and scale one. So, you know, I wasn't going to get that opportunity working for somebody else. So I think soon after I left, I became the classical unemployable person. So I can't go back to work anywhere else either. I don't think any entrepreneur really contemplates failure. You don't actually think it's not going to work. That's not to be arrogant about it, but you just get on with it, and you kind of cut your cloth to suit what you've got, and you don't spend what you don't have either. And you go. I went certainly looking for money. The most difficult thing at that stage is really coping with the ups and downs, because you can go from being very, very excited and having a really, really good day because you think you're going to get something, and then the next day to being extremely disappointed because it falls through, because maybe you don't have something which the customer actually wants. And I know I went through different experiences of, you know, having funding and then not having funding again and then not having funding again, you know, getting the banking partners on board and then not having them on board and so on, and people ringing up and, you know, arranging meetings with you and then cancelling the meetings with you. And it's kind of the discipline that you just have, and the challenge that you've got really is just to persevere with that at the early stages, is to make sure that you stick with that. And it can be that's the bit that can be hard. You know, getting public transport instead of driving is not that difficult, you know, but having the guts to stick with the program and not to give up after 6 months, because it's going to take you much, much longer than you think it's going to take. So you have to persevere with it and keep going with it. And the more that you do that, I think the better. You know. What the Realex experience taught me was just, you know, that to spend time up front now, to be clear about what you want to be before you go down the path of doing it. So there's an expression that we use here, which is, if you want to make it real, you must make it clear. So making your clarity around what your vision is, what the culture that you want within the organisation that you're trying to build, what is the product strategy that you want to follow, you know, and how are you going to be organised, and can you answer those questions, you know, clearly and concisely to anybody that you meet walking down the street even about your business. And if you can't, you need to think about it again. So the lesson for me has now come down to having complete clarity about what your strategy is with respect to your business. And if you get that clarity, I think you've taken the first step towards making things real. I think so now. I didn't think that at the start, right? You know, at the start I would have been consumed maybe by, the internal issues that I would have had about getting the thing working, which is probably natural enough, But now when I start out, and if I was advising other startup companies, I would ask them the 4 questions like, where do you want to be? What do you want in terms of like, what is your product set? Who are you going to sell it to? How is it different from the competition that's out there in the marketplace at the moment? And why does that make sense? What's the logic behind what you're saying? So we use those 4 questions in here. I heard a great expression as a business strategy one day, which was somebody described it as it's winning, right? Tell me what winning is in your business. Have you defined what it takes to win in your business? And if you know what it takes to win in your business, well then, you've taken the first step along the way in executing on that plan. But if you don't know what it takes to win in your business, if you don't know the detail of how you're different from the competition, if you don't know like where you want to be and what products you want to sell, and you can't really articulate that clearly, you're not going to sell, this web solution to the world. That's not the answer to the question. You've got to work it out what you want to be. So I think the discipline of compiling a strategy statement is a wonderful thing to have within any organisation, small or big or growing or starting. It doesn't really matter, I think there are small things that, like, going back to the coping with the ups and downs, right? And I can remember one of the things I did, somebody told me to do it earlier on, was that, when you get it down, and when somebody doesn't answer the phone or somebody doesn't agree to meet you, go back to the office to make 2 more appointments, right? So every time something doesn't work out, put 2 more appointments into your diary and always have the diary full, right? There's also a network. It's extremely important that you have what I would call constant circulation through your network, right? So you must create a network, and there's nothing like the old-fashioned meeting people for lunch, for a cup of coffee, for a pint. You talk to people about your business, and you constantly circulate through that network as well, and you solicit feedback from those people, you get ideas from those people, and you might even get leads from those people. And it doesn't matter if you're an internet business or whatever business you are, my advice would always be to build up that network and constantly circulate through the network as well. And and then just remain persistent, remain absolutely dogged that you must continue to pursue this path, because everybody else will tell you that it's time to give up or whatever, but you need to believe that it's not, and that you must continue. I think the mentoring role is very important, and I when I started out first, I would have had as I said, a wide network of people that I would have used, and they were kind of in different types of roles as well. And there were people that I would have called, maybe when it came to commercial issues, there were people that I would have called and I would have used them as a sounding board for specific issues. People from a legal perspective, for example, people that might give me advice on, raising the financing or something like that from a personal perspective. So I think that there is and a lot of people are very happy to be a mentor. They're very happy to answer the questions. They're very happy to be involved, and they're very happy to help you. So sometimes you can think that I'm not going to ask because, I know he won't or she won't help me. But in actual fact, when you do ask, they will help you, and people are much, much more inclined to help, certainly than I thought of originally. And when I went through the first phases, I didn't ask for help. And that was a mistake, and then after I didn't get the money, I had to ask for help. And then, I got the help that I needed, and it was fantastic. And I think that, don't be shy about asking for help, because people will actually help you. Yeah, I think from my, selfish kind of niche mutual interest, self-interest area is obviously around the internet, and really believing that there are many, many, many Irish businesses that could scale through the internet, and they don't have to, worry about making millions of pounds of investments overseas. They can actually build these businesses here, and these could be B2C businesses and B2B businesses as well. And there are many, many great examples of Irish companies who are participating in overseas commerce, but they're based here in Ireland. So the likes of Hostel World, who is selling, hostels to the French, and their hostels in Spain that they're selling to the French. So there's no Irish stock involved in it. We process payments for Virgin Atlantic. It's somebody in India booking a flight, and we process those transactions into banks all over the world. There's no Irish bank involved, and yet we can bring revenue into Ireland because of that. Car Trawler provide the car rental service to airlines, for example, in Poland, where people are then booking cars, and that's all managed by through an Irish network basically. And these are examples of companies that are participating in the global e-commerce opportunity, which is booming, right? Despite the world recession. I saw the figures there for August in the UK last month. In the month of August, they traded 3.8 billion sterling was traded online. So, these markets are vibrant, those markets are growing, and Irish companies have a great opportunity to tap into those markets as internet businesses. But what we need to create is a network and a support mechanism around those companies, so that they can get the expertise, that they can get the funding, and they can get the networking opportunity that's needed for them to scale. And that's something that myself and a couple of other guys are trying to work on at the moment to help them, because it's really important. Like they need the expertise. They need to go through just access to information that will help them to construct, a proper business plan and a proper monetization model for that business. They need access to funds because, and sometimes they don't need nearly what they would have raised in the past. So with 100 grand or with 50 grand, you can do an awful lot more today with that than you would have in the past. And therefore, the people who have the money need to be able to cope with a far bigger number of businesses coming to them, looking for a lesser amount of money, right? Rather than trying to, invest a large amount of money in a small number of companies. And thirdly, then, is to build up this network where it just becomes, very easy and commonplace for people who are starting out internet businesses to be able to network and connect with other people in the internet community in Ireland. And that is a massive, massive opportunity for this country, and it's one that I'm dedicated to in terms of trying to help and trying to get involved with. And so through that, we've set up the Irish Internet, the Internet Growth Alliance, which we've created, which is just an attempt to bring that discussion to a head. And in fact, next month, Enterprise Ireland will be launching their Internet Growth Acceleration Programme on the back of that, which is a big programme of education geared towards internet entrepreneurs who want to scale their businesses. Sometimes you can depend too much on the state to do certain things for you. You gotta just do it yourself. I do believe that tax incentives are important. I think that letting companies in the early stages pay less tax is a good thing, right? So that you've got an incentive to continue to grow your business. And people do listen to things like employment grants as well, and they do get assistance. Sometimes it's difficult to engage with some of the public bodies from a development perspective, because there are so many diverse types of business now that these agencies can't be experts in everything. And I think that specialism into certain vertical sectors is going to be extremely important. So if you wanted to build a really, really good cluster of internet businesses in Ireland, well, I'd be advocating then you should have an internet unit within Enterprise Ireland or outside of Enterprise Ireland or somewhere. There should be a state body which is geared towards that particular sector, and that you really focus on that and you become really knowledgeable, and you've got to develop a huge amount of expertise with respect to that one sector, because trying to traverse across multiple different sectors with regard to expertise doesn't work anymore, and you need to be an expert, so it's extremely important that you develop that expertise. So I don't really look to the state to do things, because I'm not that confident that they will do a whole lot. And I think that it's wonderful when business comes together and when business people work together, to create the collaboration, if you like, that's necessary to make a change. And the Internet Growth Alliance is a classic example of that.